Hello and welcome back to Bad Moms in Business, the podcast. I'm Bridgette Robertson.
I'm Amanda Sharp.
I'm Danielle Monaghan.
And today we have a very special and exciting guest. We have Rita Miller with us. Rita, welcome to the podcast and congratulations on your very first podcast ever.
Thank you very much. And I'm so appreciative for you all having me here today.
We are thrilled.
Yes. So today we are diving into the topic of finances. And this, I think, kind of all started, Amanda, because you are the worst when it comes to tax season.
Yes.
We're just going there. We just went all in.
Listen, my tax lady gives me a firm talking to every single year. So I'm working on it.
I don't mean the worst as far as like payments or anything like that. I just mean in general, tax time is the bane of your existence.
It is. I stress about it the entire year. Well, and just finances in general. I just hate them, and it's just something that I don't love. So Rita, help me love finances.
Yeah.
That could be tough. If you don't have a natural love for numbers and finance, that could be a little challenging.
This is true.
Nada.
Let me give you a little full disclosure. I love doing taxes and I love helping people with their finances, but I generally file my tax return on April 15th.
Yeah.
Oh,
great.
Interesting.
I love doing other people's. I do not like doing my own. So I understand when people don't like it and they put it off.
Oh my goodness, that's so fantastic.
Doesn't that make you feel better?
It does, because we were talking during tax season. It was a little extended this year, and I was like, I need to get an appointment. And Bridgette was like, Amanda, you do realize like it was like whatever, like it was like 5 days away. Yeah, it was. And I was like, I guess so.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
And it happened to be okay. And, this year especially, it was much better than I had anticipated. So here I worried for like the first half of the year for nothing. So had I just done it, I wouldn't have had any of that worrying.
I'm so the type of person that like the second I can get my taxes done, because I do worry about stuff like that. Like I just want to get it done and over with. Like, let's just do it. As soon as I can get my taxes done, I'm going to do it. Don't want to stress.
Well, I'm excited for today's conversation because I feel like sometimes as women, we might not know the ins and outs of even our own personal finances. I think a lot of traditional households might take the stance that the husband is the one paying the bills. The husband is the one in charge of money. Not in my house, but in some houses. And so Rita, I'm wondering if you see that it is still, even in 2021, is it more traditionally that the men are taking the role of being the main finance person of the household, or are you seeing that the women are taking that role over more?
I see it as really mixed. I would say with all the people I work with, it's about half and half.
Okay.
So I work with people with their taxes. So I see about half the women are the ones that I'm interacting with the most, getting their information and things like that. And then on the flip side, the financial coaching side, when I'm working with people, on their money habits and things like that, it's also about 50-50. So about half the time it's the women coming to me saying, I'm so frustrated, this just isn't working or whatever, we can't manage our money. And then about half the time it's the husbands. So it just, I'd say it's pretty equal.
Interesting.
That's encouraging. So you mentioned the coaching aspect and that you also do taxes. So explain like the overall like picture of what your business as Rita Miller is. So that way we really understand the depth of your expertise.
All right. So I am a CPA and I'm self-employed. And I have kind of a unique arrangement. So I do tax consulting for people as a contractor. I also do contract work for a firm in downtown Ann Arbor for taxes. So that's usually where I do most of my tax preparation. And then the other side of it is the financial coaching. And that's working with pretty much anybody, 18 up to, I've worked with 70, 80-year-olds on just helping them figure out what the obstacles are in their life that are preventing them from getting to where they want to be in this dream life that they envision. Everybody seems to know what it takes to do well financially, right? It's just like dieting. You need to spend less money, maybe earn more, save more money, right? We all know that.
Yep.
But doing it into action, that's the trouble. Just like dieting, eat less, exercise more. And yet, many of us, most of us, we just can't do it on our own. So that's what I help people with.
I love that analogy and the comparison to dieting and saving money or having, financial health and overall, physical health. I had never really kind of put that together in the same lane like that. So I really enjoy that. It's why is it just so hard to do both well for me? I love to eat and I don't necessarily to me, money is not super important, but it's so important for the world. So help us, or me, Rita.
It's hard because we all have habits that we've developed through an entire lifetime. Whatever it is, we are all unique. We all have these individual experiences, our upbringing, our current income situation, things that may have been not even within our control that's happened to us over our lifetime. And that all feeds into our habits, our behaviors, things we do, things we don't do, just like anything else in our lives. And money is no exception. And then if you're married or in a relationship, now you've got two people with all of this background and history, and then you're trying to combine that and then come up with some kind of a unified front. It's not easy. But part of the problem is, in order to go forward, just like trying to lose weight or becoming more fit, you have to know where you want to go. And I think that's where a lot of people get stopped up. It's not enough to say, I want to be thin. It's not enough to say, I want to save enough for retirement. You need to really dig deep into that. Like, where do I want to go? What does that actually look like? So if I want to save for retirement, what is my retirement going to be? When I look in the future, what do I see my husband and I doing? Will we be relaxing? Will we be spending time with our grandkids? Will we be traveling? What do our actual days look like? And then you work backwards to figure out what it's going to take to support that. So when you have a vision of where you're going, and that's just one example, then you work backwards to develop a plan, but also that vision or that why, and that kind of gets overused today, but really finding that why, that's the most important thing. If that vision, that goal isn't super important to you and you don't feel passionate about that, then it's just so easy to say, I can work on saving for retirement next year.
Well, and I think one of the hazards in our industry personally is we can just work forever, right? There's no retirement age. You just work until you drop dead. So
I spit. I'm so sorry.
No sugarcoating here. No sugarcoating from Bridgette.
Screen got it. Whoa.
But Rita, I don't know what you know or don't know about us, but we're all real estate agents. Yeah. So for us, there is no pension. There is no,
But I might even say that might go for our entire generation at this point as well. So, I mean, it doesn't even really matter what you do. Very few people are going to have a pension around our age.
Right. But I'm just saying, typically if you're working at a job, it's 30 years and out, 40 years and out.
Yes.
I'm 65 now and I can retire. But for us, it doesn't necessarily look that way. And for a lot of people, it doesn't look that way. But a lot of the time, personally, I'm looking down at retirement and I'm thinking, I don't know what that means for me. I know what it means for my husband who works a more traditional job. But for me, I don't know. So I do like the thought of, begin with the end in mind, right? 7 habits. But I think that's a really good way to start and to figure out what you want your life to look like in 50, 40, 30, however long. And do you believe that there should be a number that we should be striving towards?
Ooh.
If I have X amount of dollars saved, my retirement is going to look the way I want it to.
Or maybe is there like a formula that we can all use, since everybody's going to have different, lifestyles and stuff like that? Is there a formula that we can apply to try to help us figure that out?
Absolutely. I think you have to have a specific number in mind. Again, it's part of that narrowing down that vision and goals, right? And that looks different for every single person. Now, as far as a calculation goes, there are so many online calculators. They're all a little different though. So it's worth it if you go online and do that, is to do maybe 2, 3, 5 of those. Because they all seem to come up with a little bit different of a number, because there are a lot of assumptions with interest rates. So, and different factors, you know, some of them will ask, do you want to travel in the future? But they might make assumptions onto what that travel looks like expense wise. So everybody kind of comes up with a different thing. A part of it is figuring out what lifestyle you want. That's going to determine the number. Everybody tends to think, well, I won't need much money in retirement, so I don't need as much. If let's say our household income is $100,000 a year now, you know, oh, we'll probably get by on 40 or 50,000 because we won't have this expense, we won't have that expense. But that's not necessarily true. You really need to get down into the details of what that looks like. Because even if your house is paid off, you're going to have things like property taxes. And I'm sure some of you, you know, do you all live in Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Michigan, we have pretty high property taxes. So even with a paid off home, or let's say you're in a condominium, you've got the property taxes, you've got HOA fees. That's all a significant part of the budget. If you decide you want to do traveling, or you want a second home somewhere down Florida, that's going to cost more money. Those are just all really big factors. And then the other one that's they keep talking about more, it's healthcare. At least we don't know where healthcare is going, but assuming it stays similar to the model we have now, it's going to be very, very expensive. That's potentially going to be as much or more than whatever mortgage payment you have now that you won't have later.
We're going to work just to stay alive. That's
yikes. I didn't even think about insurance. That was like the farthest thing from my mind when we started this conversation.
Yeah, and if I just add to that, the idea, which something I didn't realize until a couple of years ago, is the idea of that 65, I'm on Medicare. Well, Medicare costs money too.
Yeah.
So when I see all my clients, how much is being deducted from their Social Security payments for Medicare, and then they add in the prescription coverage, which is not automatic, and then they add in the supplement, which almost everybody has to pay for. You know, before you know it, $400, $600, $800 a month, they're paying just for their insurance premiums in retirement.
Wow.
So I guess for someone such as myself, I don't want to, I know Bridgette and Danielle and a lot of other people are buttoned up a little bit. When you're self-employed, I mean, one of the last things you do is maybe to contribute to your retirement, because it's something that you have to actively search out. It's not something that your company just has it already situated that you just sign up for. It's one that you have to actually call somebody and get it situated. And that can be a very daunting task. So at what point are you not too old to be able to catch up, if you get my drift?
Amanda's saying, is 40 too old to start?
Listen, I'm going to be 40 this month. I'm looking.
You are never too old, except maybe when you're in your 80s and you're actually retired. Then at that point, with the law, you can't really set aside money, at least in retirement accounts, but you're never really too old. So I'll give you a personal example, just that through a lot of life changes for me, I ended up starting over in my 50s. I had been a professional for a number of years and then gave a lot of that up to stay home with my kids. I homeschooled my kids a long time, 15 years.
Wow.
And then in my 50s, you know, faced with starting over again. And again, you know, it's a catch-up situation, but it can be done. And I think as I was thinking about some different things to talk about today, kind of the number one thing for women that I'd like to impart is you have more control over your financial situation and your financial future than you think you do. I think we often tend to think that we're, I don't want to say victim, but we're just at the mercy of circumstances, or, oh, we don't make as much money as a spouse, or we haven't saved enough yet because we did take some time off to stay with the kids, or I'm a single person, any of those things, but you actually do have a lot of control. And a lot of it all comes back down to those habits and those actions, behaviors, and following a vision and working with somebody, whoever that is, whether that's your spouse or a good friend or a financial advisor, to come up with a plan. But you really can affect a lot of change in your financial life. It's not hopeless.
Well, that's good now.
Well, it is, because I think even in this day and age, I think there are a lot of people who are married and feel like potentially they can't potentially leave a bad marriage because they'd be starting over again. I don't have enough. Point. Yeah, I don't have enough money to be able to get an apartment and get a lawyer. And, are you listening, Chris? No, I'm just kidding. He always asks if he was discussed. Yep.
There you were.
But I always feel for women in those situations where they're tied to a marriage financially, because they don't feel like there's a way out. And so I really love that piece of advice, that you can start over, even if it means making really huge sacrifices at the beginning. You can start over and you can be successful.
Absolutely. And I have a couple of clients and friends that have gone through a similar situation, and they were truly in financial hardship, but they did take a very brave move to leave that marriage or that situation, starting almost at ground zero. And it's amazing because I know at least one of them has now been able to be successful, restart a full-time career in her late 50s, and purchase a house. And again, starting from zero, basically, and another client as well, kind of in the same thing, in the process of buying a house and just rebuilding a life, all later in life.
Good for them.
And I feel like maybe I'm behind just because of various reasons, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of people starting over, because I think in our industry, we've seen a lot of people out of desperation to get a house, maybe cash out on their retirement to be able to buy something cash, because that's the only way that they can get an offer accepted. So I think this maybe is very timely, because I think more people are going to be starting from scratch than maybe what we may imagine.
Great point.
Yeah.
Well, I feel good to not be alone. And so, like, if a person like me who I used to have a retirement, we did an episode that to become a stay-at-home mom, I cashed it all out and paid off a ton of debt. So that way, we could afford for me to be a stay-at-home mom. And now Owen's 14 and a half. So things look a little different, but I still want to be very present, which means, I'm limited to what I can work just to keep the work-life balance, well in line. So for someone like myself and many others, where can you at least start, even if it's very, very small?
Well, a lot of it depends on your employment situation, right? So if you have a regular job with W-2 income, regular payroll, it's looking at first what's available through your employer. And and all that. And there's kind of a certain pattern that you should be doing, because we always go for whatever the employer is matching. That's always the premium. You want to capitalize on that as much as possible. Yeah. But also there's just a lot for everybody out there as far as the Roth IRAs, the regular IRAs, and especially kind of going back to this whole idea of being self-employed and this huge boom in the gig economy. There's so many people, all of us basically, that are here on this call. It's so many people out there that are doing this as side hustles, or this is their new primary income. Yeah. And people don't realize there are a lot of great tools out there to save an enormous amount of money for retirement when you are self-employed. That being said, it is complicated. So you really need to be working with somebody that can give you good guidance in that area. And that could be a combination of all kinds of things. It could be an accountant, could be a financial advisor, if you've got a brokerage account and you're working with somebody. But any of those kind of people to start guiding you along, with the tax implication and what's going to work best in your individual situation.
And I feel like when I started recontributing to, retirement, and I since have stopped because for the little bit that I was able to contribute each month, which was, not very much, it actually, at the end of the day, when I was looking at my statements, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm losing money because there's a fee to handle it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I actually was hurting my own self. I could have put it in a savings account and actually made more money, even at a very little interest, because of the shipping and handling fees of that account. So there must be a sweet spot that it has to be actually worth it to put in a certain value. And if not, if you can't find that say $200 a month to make it worth it, what is a backup that would allow you to maybe make some money, but not have those fees that basically take away any momentum that you have?
Well, I think the actual answer to the question is finding the right vehicles that don't have those kinds of fees. So I think maybe it could be in your situation that there were better options, same kind of investments or same kind of funds, but maybe just wherever you were at, the fees were just too high, because that really shouldn't happen. Unless
it was two different companies too.
Really?
At the end of the day, yeah. And I mean, it was like let's be honest, we air our dirty laundry all the time, but it was only $100 a month. But I'm like, hey, it's something. And so Absolutely. At the end of the day, it was $1,200 a year. And truly, it wasn't even a matter of the market doing poorly. It was a matter of the fees were just more than, and I go, oh my gosh, I seriously could have made more money just in interest in a savings account. So yeah. I suppose I do maybe just need to do a little bit more digging and find a product that isn't as steep. And I can't even say it was a steep handling fee. It just wasn't. If the market isn't great and you're not getting a ton of gain, it's not even helping off balance the fees to have that account open. And of course, I mean, I expect people to get paid for handling my money. I mean, it's not like I want it to be done for free, but that's the part that you can go, that's really discouraging when you're trying to just do a little and you just go, man, it's not getting me anywhere. It's actually making me lose money, but not because of the market.
Yeah, I think you could find that if you looked around or could work with somebody, maybe a different financial person, different financial advisor, that they might be able to find you some better products. There are just so many out there as far as no load, heavy front load mutual funds, things like that. And so sometimes people, when they're doing these huge upfront fee mutual funds, that's what happens in the first couple. So that can be really hard. And so I also see the marketplace is shifting away from that because people are becoming more aware of this. Oh my gosh, I put my money in. I'm not getting anything and I've lost money. This is ridiculous. And in the meantime, whoever's handling my money, they're making a profit.
Yeah, they're going on vacation.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want anyone to work for free, but I go, well, I guess I should be putting that money in stock myself and just rolling the dice. Because at least the shares are the shares.
Which is also why there's such a proliferation of people using places like Schwab and Vanguard, Fidelity, Robinhood trading apps and things like that.
I got on there.
Did you?
I'm not addicted because it's not like I have a lot of pennies to spare, but it's really fun. I'm feeling
not that person.
But you know what, Rita? This is the thing. That's given me a little taste of what it's like to like money. Because
whatever works for you.
So that could be the tool that I needed to go, oh my gosh, maybe saving money can be fun. It can be more of a game.
Interesting. Well, I dig it then.
I'm just a mess, Rita.
But there are other little things like that. They call that, the gamification of money. It kind of is, right? Because you get that kind of thrill of being able to easily put a few dollars here and there and trade, and you win or your investment goes up $5. It feels really good. And it's an incentive to continue. It becomes like a game. But there are also other apps. I know some stores have it, some financial apps have it, where every time you buy, it'll round up your purchase to the nearest dollar and then take that remaining change and put it in.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah, I used to have one. It was called Acorns or something.
Isn't that Ashton Kutcher's? Doesn't he own that?
I don't know.
I think he owns that.
I used to use it, and if you spent $1.50, it would take that other 50 cents and stow it away for you.
In what, like a bank account?
In some sort of account that you could eventually have access to once you had a certain amount of money. I haven't used it in years because when we switched banks, my bank didn't play nice with that app. But yeah, it was fun while it lasted. So what I think, to recap what we've talked about so far, is as far as retirement goes, have a plan, know what your life is, what you want your life to look like in your retirement. And from there, you can decide how much money you need to be saving in order to hit that financial goal. Did I?
Yep.
And it's also never too late.
And it's never too late. Yeah.
Never too late. And I'll add something on here that's not really popular, but in order to make that happen, generally speaking, you've got to give something else up.
Yeah. And so that was actually going to be my next question. Yeah. If we're talking about things like getting out of debt in order to be able to save, how do you feel about Dave Ramsey?
Ooh. I feel like
interesting.
I have my own opinion of him, and I was just curious what yours was. And I'd share mine first if that would make you more comfortable.
Honestly, it doesn't matter. So I am a big proponent of the Dave Ramsey method.
Okay.
Hands down, I am. And largely because following his method changed my life.
Oh,
interesting.
It did. So I was first exposed to Dave Ramsey. Well, actually, my kids were. They were taking a finance class, and they kept coming home and saying, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you need to watch this. This guy's hilarious." And they were learning so much. And I just, I'm an accountant. I don't need that. I just ignored them. I don't need to hear anything. And a little later on, I don't know, a couple of years later, I was really getting deep into budgeting because I'm thinking we're just not getting any traction. And I had the usual, we had credit card debt, car loans, home equity loan, the whole shebang, but decent income. And when I really sat down and went through the numbers, I realized we were burning through about $1,000 to $1,100 a month above our income, our inflow. Every month, which was just horrifying to see. And so that's when I kind of got on board. I bought his book and I just put it into action right away. I mean, I was selling stuff on, at that time, Craigslist. I was putting the money in a little jar. I was taking the jar down to the credit union every Saturday to put money on my car loans and things like that. And boom, we ended up being debt free and paying everything off.
Can I ask how long it took you to become debt free?
That took about a year.
Wow.
Not including the house. The house came later.
For sure.
But all the rest of the debt, about a year.
Good for you. That's incredible.
So I used Dave Ramsey as well, not nearly to the T like you're supposed to, because I found for myself, the reason I struggle with Dave Ramsey is his whole rule is like, you don't go out to dinner if you have a credit card bill due. You don't spend on anything extra. And for me, I'm like, well, that's no fun. I can't go to dinner. I want to have fun. So I wish that there was a way to say that you could have both. I totally understand that you're not going to get out of debt by overspending and paying off credit card bills. I get that. But is there a way to find a happy balance where you're continuing to snowball your debt and paying it off, but maybe you're going to a movie once a month or going to dinner once a month versus maybe you're doing that once or twice a week right now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there's some give and take or some play there?
Well, there can be. I think it's really just based on your pain points. So where are you at financially? For some people, their back is against the wall. They can barely pay their just normal living expenses. Dave Ramsey calls it the four walls, transportation, your utilities, food, shelter, kind of a thing, and then that's really all they're doing. So for people like that who have a lot of debt, this is serious business. So a lot of this advice is towards that you have no business going out and spending $50 on a dinner at Applebee's when you can barely make the minimum payments on your credit card.
Absolutely.
Great point.
So now that being said, for people who aren't in that situation, kind of the rest of a middle America like us, right? The pain point is, how long do you want to have financial stress? How long do you want to have these debts? You know, I work with a lot of people with student loan debt, right? That's kind of the big buzzword right now. Everyone's talking about student loan debt. And I have clients, they owe $50, $70, $100, $150,000 in student loans. I even have retired people who owe student loans still.
Oh my gosh.
And so when you look at, let's say, credit card debt or student loan debt, and let's say the payment is $800 a month for the next 10 to 20 years, that's horrible, right? That's an extreme pain point. Now, you could go get a side job, side hustle, and work really hard, and it's going to be extremely difficult for the next 2 to 3 years so that you can bring in enough money so that you can put $3,000 a month on that student loan and not go out to eat, for example. That's going to be horrible. It's going to be a very uncomfortable 3 years. What's worse, doing that kind of pull the Band-Aid off, hard work for 3 years, or paying $800 a month for 20 years?
Wow.
It's so true. And Rita and I, how we met was with Jeff at his coaching thing that he did for.
Yes.
And it was the biggest takeaway from that particular, summit was choose your hard. Choose your hard. Working like crazy to pay off debt is hard, but so is having debt. That's hard. Which hard is worse? And then choose the route that you want to go. So I think that's super, super great advice, Rita. It's short-term pain, but for overall gain. And not everyone's in the position to do that. But if you are, and that's where I really enjoy Dave Ramsey. I think his heart is in the right place for trying to get people to be financially very independent. And his whole thing is, what is it, with gazelle-like intensity? And that's what he's meaning by it. It's like, you know what, do what you got to do to get out of debt like right now. But I worry that it also sometimes oversteps on other very, very important things that aren't necessarily money related. So that's my thoughts on Dave Ramsey. I think, to Bridgette's point, I think there's a way to marry both worlds. Just stop putting credit card debt is the first step, right? And while it might take 40 years to pay it down, it's not going to get any worse. So if you can stop it, I think that's at least a good place to start. But that doesn't make you wealthy. So that's why we have Rita here.
Yeah. How do I get rich quick, Rita?
That's why you're really here, Rita. Secrets.
Yeah, 3 side jobs, side hustles, all that.
Right. Don't sleep. Just work.
But, I'd also like to go back to the idea of, paying off debt is hard, but having debt is hard. I think for most of us, though, it's beyond having debt. What we're really saying when we have debt, and why this even comes up, is financial stress and insecurity. I mean, isn't that really the root of it? It's, I've got debt. And if you have debt and it doesn't bother you and it doesn't stress you out, you probably don't have a strong why to pay it off. It's that stress and that insecurity is what's driving people to make the change.
True.
So when you're saying choose the hard, you're also comparing the hardness of paying off the debt to the emotional feelings of what you're dealing with when it's hard to pay bills, or when you and your spouse are working so hard and you feel like you don't have anything to show for it.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to when you were speaking to your coaching, you said that you had people as young as 18 that you help. Give us an idea of what that looks like, because Owen, like I said, is 14 and a half. He's getting near that. And I really do want him to have, and I believe he has a pretty strong foundation as far as what money should look like, what it looks like, the power of money and all of that type of stuff. What are some tips that we can maybe start sharing with our children to just kind of give them a really good foundation, especially someone who's well on his way to 18?
Well, I think it's probably 2 main things. One, what are their financial habits right now? So let's say they're 17, 18, 19, either due to, their upbringing or what you've imparted with them. Do they have good habits to start with, or do they have habits they need to work on? So that's kind of the first level. is making sure they've got good habits and practices and kind of a vision of how to manage their money going forward. And then part of that is that, just like for all of us that are older, that visioning process. So for them, it's not so much retirement, but it's envisioning, well, what are they planning on doing for school? Where do they see themselves at age 25 or 30? Where do they see themselves in relationships? Are they thinking they probably want to get married, in the first 10 years or not? And it's all changeable, right? We know when we're kids, nothing ever turns out like we plan. We all have this vision, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to learn this, and this is what I'll do till I die. And that hardly ever happens. Right. But at least, again, having that vision gives you some direction and a strong motivation. A why is motivation.
I like that.
Good habits and things. And then for people in that age range, the big one, it's education and student loans and paying for college. And, and obviously that is also in conjunction with parents usually.
For sure.
Figuring that out and how to sometimes compromise as best as you can, make it the best of all worlds. Getting the right education, or the appropriate education, and for an appropriate price. And then figuring out the best ways to fund that, and preferably without debt, because it can be done.
Absolutely.
I think as a society, at least what you hear in the media is that, we must have all the student loan debt, and we're all kind of victims of the system. And that could be a little bit true. But again, going back to you have more control over your future, your financial future, than you think you do.
And as far as savings go with somebody that age, is there a rule of thumb that, you make X amount, this percent should go to savings, and then the rest is just whatever?
There is and there isn't. So I think having some kind of a plan in place is the best way. And that's a lifelong habit that will take you forever. And that'll be a good foundational habit for wherever you are. It's really up to you as far as percentage. I have seen so many different models from different finance gurus, Susie Orman and all these, that I don't know if one is better than another, but something, right? I've heard of people doing thirds. I've heard of people doing thirds. A third you spend, a third you save, a third you go to charity. Some people are, 10% to charity or a cause, at least when you're a kid. 60% towards savings, and then 30% for spending. I think part of that's just, your own personal values, your family, those priorities, what's important to you.
Well, and I would think too, what your income is, because for some people hearing 60% you save, they're like, we don't have 60% to save. What do you mean? What are you talking about, Rita? 60%?
My bills are over that.
Right. Yeah, I'm talking mostly for the kids.
For sure.
Yeah. For sure. 15 years old, you don't have a lot of expenses. And I think left to your own devices, especially when you're a kid, wow, you get that first paycheck and you get that, $160 pay. There's a temptation to spend it all on something that's probably going to be gone in a day, going out or some kind of entertainment or food. So always having at least some kind of a percentage that is just non-negotiable. Go ahead.
I really want to implement that now. You know what I mean? If he's really good. And the thing is, like, he just kind of naturally saves, especially now, because what is he supposed to spend it on? He's coming out of a year of we didn't go anywhere. So it kind of was natural this past year, because out of necessity almost, just because there wasn't really a place besides some online gaming stuff. But moving forward, I think it's good that it's just your plan, but have a plan. I think that's easily put. I like it.
Something I wanted to kind of go back to also, this idea of having control over the money, that it's so often, actually almost all the time, except for people who truly have little to no income, it's not the money, it's the behavior and habits. I've got clients who make in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and they cannot pay their bills.
Wow.
And I have had people, singles and couples, young couples, who are below the poverty line, raising children, who have no debt and build their savings month by month.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
It tends to be more of an issue when there is a high income. That is harder to develop really good financial habits and build wealth, because there's just always this inflow of cash. So no matter what you do, no matter how much you overspend one month or you blew the budget or anything like that, there's always this giant paycheck coming in the next month. So that sense of urgency to change the habits, it's just not there. And it makes it really difficult.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Wow. Rita, you've been so wonderful and given us so much to think about. I guess I'm going to go crack open my Dave Ramsey book because I got 2 cars I'd like to pay off. As I sip my Starbucks.
We'll give a shout out for one thing. If you want motivation, even besides reading the book, is go on to YouTube or even Dave Ramsey podcasts. Almost every day they have debt-free screams.
Mm-hmm.
With those.
Yep.
If anything will be motivating, it's that. These people come on and it's incredible. They might have $150,000 worth of credit card and student loans and whatnot. And some of the people come on there and they've got household incomes of, $60,000 and they pay it off in 3 years. Just to see that gazelle intensity and to see what people can really do when they have that strong motivation. I recommend my clients always watch a couple of these. I send them links because just to spark that motivation and just so that people can know it is not hopeless. You really can do it. No matter where you're at, you can make this better and improve your financial life. Absolutely.
Powerful.
Very.
So Rita, where can everyone find you if they wanted to reach out to you after hearing you on this podcast?
Well, we have a couple ways: old school, email, and website. So my email is Rita at ritamillercpa.com. Very easy. And my website is the same, ritamillercpa.com. Okay. I'm also on Facebook, so you can find me at Rita Miller Financial Coaching on Facebook. But yeah, just especially reach out over through the website or an email, and pretty much anybody who wants to talk to me, I automatically give a complimentary consultation, and we basically sit down just like this for about a half hour, talk about your situation and just see what looks best, like what makes most sense for you moving forward and what kind of a plan would really help you get exactly to where you want to go.
Excellent.
I love that it's looking into the future and kind of going backwards. I think that just makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Well, Rita, thank you so much for joining us today. You have been so insightful. I mean, never been on a podcast before. Knocked it out of the park.
Killed it.
We appreciate you so, so much. And again, we'll have all of your information in our show notes for anybody who would like to reach out to you directly. And I think, do we have a B this week? Anybody?
Oh no, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I want to say like it's never too late to start, but I can't condense that into a be something. Like, be not afraid to start later in life.
Be not afraid. Sounds like a Bible verse.
That's perfect.
Here. Be not afraid.
There you have it. Be not afraid. I love it.
All right, I'm writing it down, guys. I'm writing it down.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Bad Moms in Business, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.